So by now we know that we're all from Science of Mind 300 students, right? So, and I am Lisa Howard. I'm the crazy woman on the Cross Bronx Expressway. When we talked about this class, we had several different topics, all of which stemmed around love, the conversation of love and how it affects each and every one of us. Reverend Frankie, shortly before she left, threw in the word cosmic to the mix, which totally threw me off because I had no idea how I could identify anything in my life around love with something like cosmic. For me, that was a word, it was just like groovy. That was something that in the 60s or 70s, and I couldn't grasp that. And then, so after some serious consideration over the past weekend, a story that I wanted to share with you took new life several times, and at the end of the story, I hope that you will see the point that I'm trying to make. About 7 years ago, I was on vacation traveling in Hawaii with a friend of mine. And while we were there, she was boring me so much that I fortunately met a young man, actually young in spirit, 62 years of age physically, who became our sidekick for the next 2 weeks and entertained us in more than one way, all of which I can talk to a priest about, so we're keeping it totally clean. He has since passed, but in the very short 18 months that I got to know this man, he gave me insight to something that at the time I had no idea how valuable it was. His name was Johnny Be Good. That's a nickname that the tour guide in Hawaii gave him, and that's another story all in itself. After the trip was over, I received a letter from Johnny Be Good, and in the letter, he explained that he had been retired from the Sacramento Sheriff's Department after being diagnosed with terminal liver cancer, and that he had 3 to 6 months to live. And so at the moment, it became all about me, as usual. Why did God bring this person into my life only to take him away 3 to 6 months later? And in his letter, he talked about a bucket list, and that he would be honored if I would help him create a bucket list. And on that list was a trip to New York. So he came to New Jersey, stayed with my daughter and I. We took him into New York. We showed him 42nd Street, the play. And he stayed with us for the weekend, and the night before he was leaving, we had a conversation about our childhoods and how funny life was, and how some of the small things are taken for granted. And Johnny had a very nice story, and I was at the time ashamed of the story that I had, and I realized at the end of this weekend that there was really no shame in it at all, but Johnny pointed that out. When I explained about my childhood, I said I don't really have any happy memories. My father was a raging alcoholic. We had 9 children. If we weren't making noise on our own just from being 9 kids, my father was making plenty of noise for all of us. And that usually occurred 5 out of 7 days, except on Sunday. I guess it was my father's way of repenting. He would make this tremendous breakfast for us. My mother would drive us all to church. She would cart 9 small Catholics to church. She would drop us off. She'd return home. I'm convinced that we were all conceived on Sunday because they never attended church with us. But when we came home, from church, of course we went on an empty stomach, so we would receive communion multiple times because we were starving. And we would come home and walk as fast as we could. They dropped us off, but they made us walk. They were stalling for time. When we came home, there was this spread of food, this breakfast, that everything that you could possibly imagine, any kind of breakfast food. And my father cooked it all himself. It's the only day of the week, the only meal, Sunday morning meal, that my mother did not prepare. And he would always make this tremendous pile of pancakes, huge pile. We couldn't possibly eat it all in that meal. But the deal was, because they wanted more alone time, that this bowl of pancakes, the leftovers, would be placed on top of the washing machine, which was just by the back door, with a jar of grape jelly, 1 butter knife. 9 kids, 1 butter knife. And the deal was after breakfast, we had to go outside. We were not allowed to come in. There were obviously no computers or video games to occupy us, so we were doing things like most kids did then, getting dirty and falling down and all that healthy stuff that makes us who we are. And we were allowed to just go into the back door, grab a pancake, you'd swipe some jelly on it, and you'd run outside. And for me, that memory, so when Johnny was asking, he said, Lisa, it can't all be bad. There has to be one memory, at least one, that when you think of your childhood, focus on that. When the bad times haunt your head, and believe me, they've haunted me for many years. Fortunately, thanks to this teaching, they don't anymore. I remember sitting on the stoop with my brothers and sisters. You know, we're older now. I wish that I could sit on the stoop with them and eat a rolled up pancake with grape jelly in it. My father has since passed, but the beauty and the connection of what I think is cosmic love is that some 40 years ago, I have a memory. I meet a man some 30 years later who would become one of my dearest friends. He would connect something that happened so long ago with what was happening then, and my daughter would top it off. And like a true Italian, I have my my daughter would top it off because this past Friday, we had recently just moved and we were unpacking a box of photos, and my daughter was looking at the photos, and she hears a lot of stories from all of her cousins and her aunts about my father, who wasn't always a nice man, but I believe he did the best he could with what he knew. And I can say that today. I couldn't have said that years ago. I couldn't, I would have never thought of that. And my daughter was looking at the photos and she said, Mom, was Grandpa ever nice? And I said, as a matter of fact, Sam, he was. And I said, you know, I don't make excuses for my father's behavior. As a parent, it's up to us to really make sure that aside from a life insurance policy that will feed you when I die, that I give you something that my father was not, I don't think he was aware that he gave me. He did leave us life insurance money. That is gone now. But I have a pancakes and jelly memory that it will last forever. No one can ever take that away. And it pays interest because my daughter said, as she was looking at the photo album, she said, Mom, I have a lot of pancakes and jelly memories. The jelly is my gift to you.